After my dad retired, my brother slammed his fist on the boardroom table and declared with absolute confidence, "I own this company now." Then the entire board of directors burst out laughing. Imagine that sound. Not polite chuckles. Full, roaring laughter from 12 hardened businessmen and investors who rarely even smile in meetings. One guy actually wiped tears from his eyes. Another slapped the table like he'd just heard the best joke of the year. My name is Emily Thompson. I'm 32 years old. And in that moment, I sat frozen in my leather chair, heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Across from me sat my older brother, Brandon Thompson, 35, face turning from triumphant red to humiliated purple in under 5 seconds. Before we continue with this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. This wasn't some family argument over who gets dad's old watch. This was Thompson Tech Solutions, the $50 million software company my father, Richard Thompson, 68, had built from a one-man garage operation into a respected name in enterprise solutions. I had poured the last 12 years of my life into it. Late nights, missed vacations, weekends sacrificed while everyone else lived normally. Brandon? He showed up when it suited him, took long lunches, and somehow always had money for new cars and flashy watches. Dad sat at the head of the long mahogany table, calm as ever, his silver hair catching the light from the floor-to-ceiling windows. He didn't laugh. He didn't speak. He just watched. Why does this moment matter so much? Because this single meeting was supposed to decide the future of everything our family had bled for. Brandon had spent years telling anyone who would listen that he was the chosen heir, the face of the company, the one Dad always favored in public. I was the quiet one in operations, the fixer, the one who actually made the numbers work. But something was horribly wrong here. The laughter kept rolling. Brandon's eyes darted around the room, confusion turning to rage. "What the hell is so funny?" he barked. The chairman, a no-nonsense man in his late 60s who had been with Dad since the beginning, finally caught his breath. He leaned forward, still smiling, and said 4 words that sent ice down my spine. "Let's see the real documents." My stomach dropped. What documents? What did they know that Brandon didn't? And why did I suddenly feel like the ground beneath my feet was about to crack wide open? Because as the laughter finally faded and the room went dead quiet, I realized this wasn't just about who had run the company. This was about to tear our family apart, and the truth they were hiding was going to hit my brother like a freight train. 6 months earlier, none of us saw this disaster coming. Picture a warm Sunday evening at Dad's sprawling house on the hill. The smell of grilled steaks still lingered in the air as we sat around the big oak dining table. Richard Thompson raised his glass of scotch and made the announcement we'd all been waiting for. "I'm retiring, kids. 68 years old. It's time to hand over the reins." Brandon's face lit up like he'd just won the lottery. He leaned back in his chair, that cocky grin spreading wide. "Finally. I've been ready for this my whole life, Dad. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything." I forced a smile, but inside my stomach twisted. I'm Emily, the reliable one. The daughter, who had worked her way up from junior analyst to head of operations. 12 years of 14-hour days, turning around failing projects, negotiating the contracts that actually brought in real money. Brandon? He was the vision guy. The one who showed up at 11 a.m. in designer suits, charmed clients over expensive lunches, and somehow always had an excuse when deadlines slipped. Dad nodded slowly, but I caught something in his eyes, a flicker of hesitation. He'd always favored Brandon in public, called him the face of the company, said it with pride. Yet I remembered the quiet nights when Dad would call me after Brandon left early. Can you check those numbers again? Something doesn't add up. Red flags had been there for years if you looked closely. The sudden new Rolex on Brandon's wrist. The business trips that smelled more like casino weekends. The time accounting quietly flagged $40,000 missing from a client project he oversaw. I covered for him. Of course I did. He was my big brother. Family. That night after dinner, Brandon pulled me aside on the patio. The city lights twinkled below us. "Just watch, he whispered, squeezing my shoulder a little too hard. "Once Dad steps down, The company becomes mine. It's been promised for years. You'll see. His confidence chilled me. There was something desperate underneath it. The next weeks were tense. Brandon started acting strange, printing documents late at night, whispering on phone calls, avoiding eye contact with me in the office. He even moved his desk closer to Dad's old office, like he was already measuring for new curtains. I tried to talk to Dad, privately. "Are you sure about this?" I asked. He just patted my hand and said, "Everything will be clear soon, sweetheart." The morning of the big board meeting finally arrived. Brandon straightened his tie in the elevator, looking every bit the future CEO. He turned to me with that same smirk. "Today changes everything, little sister. Today the company officially becomes mine." We stepped into the boardroom together, the heavy doors closing behind us with a soft thud. What Brandon didn't know was that the board already had their own set of papers waiting on the table, and they were nothing like the ones tucked inside his shiny briefcase. The second the boardroom door clicked shut, Brandon didn't even wait for Dad to speak. He shot to his feet, voice booming with absolute authority. "Dad has officially retired. As per the agreement he signed last month, all shares and full control of Thompson Tech Solutions now transfer to me, Brandon Thompson, the new sole owner and CEO." He slid a thick folder across the polished table like a king laying down his crown. The cover read, "Transfer of Ownership," in bold letters. His signature was there. And right below it, what looked exactly like Dad's. For 3 long seconds, the room was silent. Then the first chuckle broke the quiet. It spread like wildfire. Soon the entire board, 12 seasoned investors, lawyers, and executives who had known my father for decades, were laughing. Not nervous laughter. Genuine, belly-deep roars that echoed off the glass walls. Brandon's face went crimson. "What the hell is so funny?" he shouted, slamming his palm on the table. The chairman, still wiping tears from his eyes, leaned forward. "Kid, you really think this is how it works?" Dad sat perfectly still, expression unreadable, just watching his son unravel. My heart hammered so hard I could barely breathe. This wasn't a joke anymore. This was humiliation on a corporate scale. Brandon started yelling about blood rights, about promises made at family dinners, about how he'd been groomed for this his entire life. He threatened to sue every single person in the room if they didn't recognize his claim immediately. The emotional stakes hit me like a punch to the gut. If Brandon somehow won this, he would sell off divisions for quick cash, fire the team I'd built, and run the company into the ground within 2 years. Everything Dad sacrificed, everything I sacrificed, gone. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I stood up, my voice shaking but clear. "Brandon, stop. You're embarrassing yourself and the entire family." He whipped around, eyes blazing with betrayal. "Stay out of this, little sister. You've always been jealous. Always trying to undermine me." Those words stung worse than any slap. Because deep down, part of me wondered if he was right. Had I been jealous? Or had I just been carrying the weight he refused to touch? The laughter slowly died. The room grew cold and serious. The chairman raised his hand for silence. "Before anyone votes on anything, let's pull up the actual shareholder registry. Because according to our records, those papers your brother just waved around are completely worthless." He nodded to the AV tech. The projector flickered to life with a soft hum. My name was about to appear on that screen, and I had absolutely no idea why. The projector screen lit up, and the entire boardroom went dead silent. There it was, in cold black and white, the official shareholder registry. Emily Thompson, 55% controlling shares. Brandon Thompson, 0%. 0. Not a single share. My name stared back at me like it belonged to a stranger. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white.
"What?
"When?
How?"
Dad finally spoke, his voice low and steady, the first time he'd said anything all meeting. "I transferred everything to you 4 years ago, Em. Quietly, legally, with the board's full approval and in a living trust that can't be challenged." Brandon's mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. Then he exploded. "This is a lie. A setup. You forged this." The chairman shook his head slowly. "Son, your document? Amateur hour. Wrong notary stamp. Signature copied straight from an old contract we have on file. We spotted it in 10 seconds. That's why we were laughing. The board let out another round of chuckles, this time sharper, colder, aimed right at my brother. You really thought we wouldn't check, one director muttered. Brandon's face twisted in rage. He screamed accusations of conspiracy, of backstabbing, of the whole room being against him. He threatened to call every lawyer he knew, to drag us all through court, to burn the company to the ground if he had to. Security guards stepped closer to the table, hands ready. I sat there, world spinning. Every late night I'd covered for him. Every time I'd fixed his mistakes. Every family dinner where Dad had praised Brandon to my face while secretly protecting the company behind my back. It all crashed down on me at once. The man I'd looked up to my whole life had chosen me, quietly, without fanfare, because he saw what I couldn't admit. I was the one who actually cared. Dad looked straight at me then. For the first time in my life, I saw tears in his eyes. Real ones. Not the proud father kind. The "I'm sorry it had to be this way" kind. Stakes hit their peak. Brandon lunged forward, trying to snatch the folder off the table. 2 security guards moved in instantly, blocking him. The chairman turned to me, voice calm but heavy. Emily, do you accept ownership? And everything that comes with it. My hands were shaking under the table. My mouth went dry. The answer I gave in the next 10 seconds would either save the company my father built, or tear what was left of our family apart for good. I looked the chairman straight in the eye, my voice steady for the first time all morning. Yes, I said. I accept ownership. All of it. The words hung in the air for half a second, then the room erupted in applause. Not the mocking laughter from earlier, genuine, respectful clapping that rolled across the table like a wave. Dad's shoulders dropped in visible relief. Brandon? He stood there frozen, mouth open, the fight draining out of him in real time. Here's what actually happened. The full truth, no gaps, no secrets left hanging. 4 years ago, Dad caught Brandon forging expense reports and gambling away nearly $120,000 in company bonuses. Not a one-time mistake, a pattern. Instead of humiliating him publicly and risking the family name, Dad did what only a true leader would. He quietly transferred 55% controlling shares to me through an ironclad living trust. The board had approved it in a closed session. Brandon's transfer agreement. A sloppy forgery he'd cooked up himself, thinking Dad's retirement would be the perfect cover. The notary stamp was from the wrong state. The signature was traced from a 2019 contract. The board's lawyer had spotted it before Brandon even finished sliding the folder across the table. That's why they laughed, not at him, but at how badly he'd miscalculated. Dad walked over, pulled me into a hug right there in front of everyone and whispered, "You were always the one, Em." I just couldn't say it out loud until today. Tears burned my eyes. After 12 years of feeling invisible, the validation hit like a warm flood. Relief. Justice. Finally, someone saw me. The consequences unfolded fast and without mercy. Security escorted Brandon out the side door while he muttered empty threats. The board voted unanimously to terminate his employment immediately. They considered pressing fraud charges, but Dad asked them to hold off. Brandon eventually agreed to repay every cent, $120,000 wired back within 30 days. Socially, the family split clean. Cousins texted me congratulations, Mom, even after the divorce, called crying with relief that the company wouldn't be gambled away. Personally, Brandon was cut from the family trust and barred from any future involvement. 3 months later, I heard he was working a straight commission sales job at a smaller competitor, humbled, quieter, and finally sending one single text that simply read, "I'm sorry." My life changed that day. I stepped into the CEO role the very next week. The company didn't just survive. It hit $62 million in revenue the following year because the team finally had a leader who showed up every single day. Dad retired to his house on the hill with zero regrets. Last month, he handed me the original keychain from the garage days, the one with the tiny silver T on it. We stood on his balcony overlooking the city skyline as the Thompson Tech Solutions building glowed in the distance. She's all yours now, kid, he said, smiling. I smiled back, the weight of 12 years finally feeling like home instead of a burden. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly where I belonged.